So hopefully you can see and hear me, and the people online, if people are tuning in, can see and hear me. It's style 3. We've already talked about word choice in theory by this point. We've talked about sentences at this point. This is about paragraphs and really making sure you don't bury your point in the middle of them. How do you move people through a paragraph? It has a beginning and a middle and an end just as much as a paper does. And there's a logic to the flow, even at the paragraph level. So let's have a look. I want to suggest to you that this is the pattern. A successful paragraph follows. Successful being what? What do we want a paragraph to do?
To get a point across.
To get a point across, absolutely. But what's the other half of that? And are you here for the cell workshop?
Yes.
Great. Sit anywhere you are. Tell me your name.
Jack.
Jack. Yes, of course. Should know that by now. Jackie. Jack and William and Rose. Get a point across. We heard from William as the point of a paragraph. Okay. Yes, that's what it does. Get a point across. Across what? To where?
The audience.
To an audience, to a reader, right? And different readers are coming from different places. So we're in the business, if we're building a bridge with a paragraph, if we're getting a point across a chasm, we have to focus on that destination. Where are we getting to? And the way to do that is to be thinking all the time of, well, what's going through the head of the person who's reading this? We have to get outside of our own head. A lot of times we sit down to write a paper, and what is the first thing we're doing? We have this assignment, we have to turn in this thing, we maybe have done, well, what do we do? What's the process? Walk me through.
Maybe an outline first of what you're going to talk about.
Maybe an outline, okay, sure, but outlines have to be flexible because.
I don't know what you're getting at.
What?
I just don't know what you're getting at.
It's not a secret. How do you write a paper? It's not a trick question.
Just start.
You just start.
Think about what you're going to write.
Think about what you're going to write, and you just write it. Okay, and then what happens? If you just put it down, back of a napkin, get those ideas out, turn it in. What kind of grade are you going to get?
Pretty bad.
Pretty bad. So what are the other steps of that process?
Do rough draft first, revise it multiple times.
Okay, okay. How do you generate this rough draft? First of all, what goes into it?
The main topic, the thesis.
Main topic, thesis.
Evidence.
Evidence, right? You might do research. Okay. What else? A trick question.
Think
What
about
do
your
you do?
audience. Think about your audience and what they know.
Think about your audience and what they know. So that's going to affect the word choice and everything on down to determine what you put into this. What do people already know? What do they need to know? Once you've got that rough draft, you've got your ideas down, you've done the best you can, maybe got an outline. Then you have to go back and think about, at a very high resolution level, what's going through the reader's mind as they read this. So it's a rinse and repeat process of refining that paragraph to follow this pattern. And here's how it goes. So you've got this paragraph 1 on your handout, and I'm asking you what's good about it. We're going to reverse engineer the pattern of a good paragraph. During the first decade of Just Do It, number one. Nike increased its market share of the domestic sports shoe business from 18%, $877 million, to 43%, more than double. And there's a citation there of some kind. Just Do It expanded Nike's target audience from hardcore competitive athletes to the general public by appealing to the inner athlete. The new appeal was that anyone and everyone could wear the merchandise and feel included, everyone. From your average teenager making a fashion statement to professional athletes putting in hours of work could wear a pair of Nike athletic shoes and experience the associated benefits of doing so. The values of that inner athlete, determination, dedication, and mental toughness added up to a Nike brand that finally forced Reebok out of a dominant market position. What's good about that pair?
I think it's precise. It's not wordy.
Precise, not wordy. I'll buy that. What's precise about it? Can you give me an example, Rose, of its precision?
No, I'm not sure of this.
Be precise.
It tells how they did it.
It tells how they did it. Good stuff. Okay.
With the target, with the consumers.
Okay. William, you look thoughtful?
I mean, it just tells you what they did, tells you how they did it, and then why it worked.
What they did, how they did it, and why it worked. Okay. Anything to add to that, Jeff?
No, it's just pretty to the point
And what is the point?
that they increase their market and force Reebok out of market position.
Okay, yeah, so that's the bottom line, and it's at the bottom. So I want to suggest to you that at every step of the way, yes, there is a point that we get to it, but at every step of the way, this writer is thinking about what's in the reader's head. So first sentence, what's the situation? First sentence, the reader hasn't decided to read your document yet. You've written this thing, and assuming it's not, for a class, assuming it's functioning in the real world in any way, we need to know right off the bat, why am I reading this? So, well, and I say document because this really applies to anything. Is this set of instructions going to be useful to me? I'm looking at it for a few seconds to see whether it's confusing or not. And if I think it's badly written, I'm not going to use that set of instructions. I'm going to look it up online. If I'm getting an email from you, whoever I am, boss, client, looking at that first line, if it doesn't look relevant to me or useful, I'm probably not paying much attention to the rest of it. So right at the beginning of whatever it is, down to the paragraph level, we want that first sentence to tell us something relevant. During the first decade of Just Do It, Nike increased its market share of the domestic sports shoe business from 18 to 43%. Now that's nice, it's precise, it's evidence, it's numbers, but what else is good about it?
Grabs your attention.
Yeah, so it's not just numbers for the sake of numbers, it's a snapshot of what they accomplished. And therefore, I'm likely to say, yeah, this is something I want to hear more about. So what am I asking as the reader at that point? Once I've read through the first sentence, where am I going from there? What am I thinking?
How did you do it?
How? Yeah, cool. How'd they do it? How'd they do it? And therefore, the next sentence has to be about that. It can't be about anything else. Once you've succeeded in getting the reader on board, getting them thinking about what comes next, you have to answer what comes next. Thou shalt answer the reader's questions. And of course, how they did it is moving from athletes to the general public by appealing to the inner athlete. At that point, we're thinking, what's an inner athlete? What does that even mean? And so they explain that a bit more. And then what do they think? Anybody could wear a pair of Nike athletic shoes and experience the associated benefits. But that's not the end. What's the end?
That they not Reebok's out of the market.
But they knocked Reebok out of the market. So this has a business payoff. This isn't just about the psychology of the buyer. It's about the payoff of that, and it was market share and mind share, meaning knocking Reebok out of the dominant market position. But what if, that's a kind of sexy example. That's a good example. People care about Nike and how it succeeded. You ask students to pick a brand to write about, have them pick that. What if you have to write about something that's not obviously interesting? As we often do, say, in biochemistry. Pick one example. So you've got paragraph number 2 there. In the 1990s, slimming products containing Chinese herbs were sold in Belgium as traditional herbal medicines. The main herb used in making them was Stephania tetrahundra. In Chinese, the name for Stephania is very similar to the name for Aristolochia fungi. Aristolochia contains aristolochic acid. This acid causes endemic nephropathy with permanent kidney damage and end-stage kidney failure. After medical dangers were associated with the herbal supplements, the International Agency of Research on Cancer classified Aristolochia as a human carcinogen. Carcinogen meaning
Cancers?
causing cancer. Yeah. The genesis of a carcinoma causing cancer. Okay. What's good about that, Barry? It's not as cool as Nike, but it sounds pretty worth knowing. What's going on there?
Informative.
Informative. Okay. How? How is it informative? Why do I care about herbs? Why do I want to be informed about something in Chinese?
You might come across it, so you can avoid it later.
Okay. Maybe. What do you think, Jack?
Pretty much tell you what this thing is and what it has, and then that it's bad. So,
What this thing is, and then why it's bad. Right? So consequences, in other words. Why we should care? It tells us why we should care. Anything to add to that one?
I don't think so.
So how do we move from sentence to sentence? What's the pattern here? When they got to the end, okay, in the 1990s, slimming products containing Chinese herbs were sold in Belgium as traditional herbal medicines. What's the reader thinking? Most likely. What do you think?
What's herb?
Yeah, so when you say herb, okay, I kind of know that word. I mean, we've seen that word, but tell me more when you say herbs, what do you mean? Well, the main herb used was Stephania. Okay, now what do you think?
What's that?
What's that? Well, in Chinese, the name for Stephania is very similar to Aristolochia fungi. So we tell you a little bit more about Stephania. We know it's an herb, and that it's similar to this other herb, at least the labeling is. Now what do you think? The name for Stephania is very similar to the name for Aristolochia fungi.
I would say that they use it in the wrong way. That's caused some harm.
Well, we don't know that yet. What are you thinking at this point? In the 1990s, slimming products containing Chinese herbs were sold in Belgium as traditional Chinese medicine. The main herb was Stephania. In Chinese, that name is similar to Aristolochia. That's as far as we've gotten. What do we think?
So why are you telling me this?
So why are you telling me this? So what? Why are you telling me this? Well, Aristolochia contains aristolochic acid. Now what do you think of that?
that's why you're telling me this.
Yeah, but, okay, so acid, you hear that word, what do you think? Maybe, because why? I mean, orange juice has citric
You
acid.
don't know what it is, so like, what is it? Or,
We're not sure what it is, you're wondering what it is.
So this is, so what? What does it do?
So what? What does it do? Well, this acid causes endemic nephropathy with permanent kidney damage and end-stage kidney failure. Now what do you think?
Oh.
Right.
So we shouldn't take that.
Right. So there's the breakdown. People are thinking, so what? In the 1990s, slimming products containing Chinese herbs were sold in Belgium as traditional herbal medicines. So what? The reader is thinking. So the next sentence has to be why that matters. It matters because the main herb was Stephania. So what? Well, the thing is, on the label, Stephania is going to look a lot like Aristolochia. So what? Well, Aristolochia contains this acid. So what? This acid can hurt your kidneys really bad. So what? Well, Also, it's, cancer causing. Oh. So even if we're skimming through, you're throwing some big words at us, we're skimming to the bottom, we're looking for the main point. We're going to get the main point. This is dangerous. It's a dangerous substance. And not only is it a dangerous substance, but the label kind of looks like something harmless. So is it a traditional herbal medicine, or is it something that's going to kill me? Hard to know. So maybe, where would you predict that goes from there? Jack, what would the next paragraph perhaps be about, if you had to say?
The cancers it could cause.
Right, it could be more about the dangers. It could be more about the dangers. Where else might it go? You got to predict. Next paragraph.
So I was in, I didn't zone out, I was looking at something else.
What were you looking at?
It doesn't, like, to me, it doesn't make sense that you just say that the name's similar. Therefore, you just run off with your paragraph saying that it's carcinogen and it's bad. That the previous thing is not connected to it, but the name's similar.
Yeah, so you'd want more explanation there about the labeling and why a mix up there would matter.
Yeah, I mean, the names aren't, I mean, Stephania to Trandra to Aristolochia fungi. I know in Chinese they're similar.
Yeah, so they're coming in Chinese crates, but you'd like more of a breakdown there of where the mix-up might
I
arise.
mean, if you're going to tell me that this thing's causing cancer and there's no evidence for it other than, I mean, not until the late 1990s, then it doesn't, I'm not buying it.
Okay,
I mean, from this, I'm not buying it.
okay, and so I like the process you're going through there. Will you be that tough on your own paragraphs and look back at your sentences and say, okay, are there any missing links here? Because we can always do that, right? We can always go in and make the connections tighter. And at a certain point, we just have to decide, okay, I've only got 1,000 words, 1,200 words, 2 pages, 5 pages for this assignment. And so I've got to include as much as I can, as cleanly as I can without getting too crowded, and then move on. So given the constraints, you're trying to make the argument as well as you can, and connect those things nicely. And then at a certain point, you have to turn it in. And so I'm sticking to my question. What do you think the next paragraph might be about?
Maybe cases about the previous one being a carcinogen?
Okay, so kind of going along with Jack thinking, okay, maybe they're going to tell us more about the cancer piece. That would be logical because that's what they ended with. Other thoughts, Rose?
Yeah, they would like present the evidence. How so is it really dangerous? Maybe
Okay.
they will show example of someone who took this supplement in Belgium.
Sure, maybe some specific examples.
Yeah.
Great, okay, logical enough. So the end of the paragraph is probably setting up a further discussion.
Yes.
Okay. But even by the end of the paragraph, we've got an idea of why this matters. One more thing before we move on from that. How come we were able to follow it? I mean, you can say, okay, I'm not buying it, as William says, but you know what you're not buying. You know what all these big words mean. How come even those of us who don't major in biochem knew exactly what they were talking about when they started saying Stephania to Trandra and Aristolochia fungi? How come that was easy to follow?
The beginning of one sentence picks up with where the previous one left off.
Yes. So each sentence leads into the next, and you could, really diagram this. He ends with Stephania. He explains that in the next sentence. He ends with Aristolochia. He explains it in the next sentence. Furthermore, he gives us a tool to make sense of those big words. What does the paragraph do? Right at the beginning.
General.
General.
And then
What's the general word there?
just a random herbs.
Herbs. Yeah.
Standard.
Herbs. So we've got that kind of basket to put these big words in. We know whatever the big words are. That's a really good thing to do. If you have to use technical terms, sometimes we have to use technical terms. But even if we're talking to other doctors or biologists or chemists, they may not study herbs as much as we do. So it's nice to remind them, okay, we're going to talk about herbs now. And then I can use all the technical terms. It's just while we're on the subject. Sometimes we need those technical terms for very precise information. But even if we're talking to an inside crowd, it's good to give people a bigger general term to anchor them. Okay, so one more example, paragraph 3 there. Anthro. Clark's practice of carefully mapping every fossil made it possible to follow the evolutionary development of various types through time. What I'm asking you to do here is identify the so what sentence. Where does this give us the payoff, what this all adds up to? If you would just underline that sentence when you come to it. It might be at the end, might be at the beginning, might be in the middle. But what's the point here?
Yeah, but they, got that. Yeah. 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 Oh, you're welcome. Oh. Oh. Yeah.
And a couple good questions online. One about, does this apply across the board to various kinds of writing besides just argument? Yes, absolutely. The so what we could see in a progress report, in any kind of document, in a memo. We need to know what this adds up to, whether you're making an argument or not. So definitely this applies to different kinds of writing. I think I got one more question in the question and answer.
You want to go? Well, oh, yeah, I'm seeing you guys are leaving. Okay. Yeah.
How do we, it's a harder one, the other question that I got in the online Q&A, how do we know the audience? But, you know, it's only in class where it's hard to imagine who the audience is. In real life, and if we're in an internship or out of college, as many of us know, the audience is all too clear. We have a boss we need to communicate with. We have a client we need to communicate with. And it's our job to research them a little bit and know what information they need us to bring in. So you know, if we were in class, we'd have more time to talk about this. But in your particular profession, we're often in a situation where we work for a company, we have to talk to a client who doesn't know as much as we do about the situation. We have to explain things to a more general audience, then turn around and report to a boss who knows more than we do. So we need to be able to shift those gears. Still, in general, you'll find that one rule about giving people a kind of anchor term generally comes in handy. Even if you're writing a memo to a boss. Remember, you asked me to do X, Y, and Z, bring them up to speed, and then give them the technical information you've got to give them. So what's the answer here? What's the so what sentence for number 3? Clark's practice of carefully mapping every fossil.
evolution was taking place before the eyes of the Homo surveyors.
And
And it could be time.
it could be time. In short, you've even got that nice little signpost there. In short, evolution was taking place before the eyes of the Homo surveyors, and it could be time. Period. But what's wrong with this paragraph? The way it's designed right now. It should be at the end. It should be at the end. The bottom line should be the bottom line. So we've got this nice, in short, we've got this nice so what, but it's not where it should be. Again, when you're getting your ideas down on paper, these are some beautiful sentences with good evidence and all of that. We're hopefully writing paragraphs like this. But when we're going back, this is an extra step in the process. You've already written your nice draft. And now you're going back and looking at, do I have any places where I buried the main point in the middle? Or left it out? Maybe it was in your head, you thought you wrote it down. So these are pretty specific strategies for revision. Did you guys bring anything in particular to work on of your own? No problem if you didn't. Was that a yes, I did?
Yes.
You do? Okay, so could you pull that out? Sure, got it. And Rose, how about you?
I have a summary.
You do?
Yes.
Okay, but perhaps not Jack. Okay, no problem. So if you're Jack, if you would flip over your handout and look at number 4 and do that on your own. So that's my placeholder here. And then if you've got something of your own writing to work on, you would pull that up so I can see it. If you're playing along online, you should have hopefully a paragraph of your own that you can look at.
I got a question for you.
Yes,
All right, so we're writing these summaries, right?
you are.
For summaries, you want to state something at the beginning, tells them what you're going to tell them, right?
State something at the beginning that
Well,
tells them what you're going to tell them.
I mean, you're going to like say something like that. There's not really a kick in the door kind of statement at the end with summaries. Am I right, or am I wrong?
Well, they're so short that it's not like we need a big ceremonial wrap up.
Right,
We just need the point. So, what do you think?
I mean, it seems like on these, this is how you want to persuade, like you're going to persuade somebody with these kind of paragraphs where you, at the end, your big statement, bold statements at the end, this could be at the end, Reebok. But like, from what we've been going over, in the class, it seems like, well, Reebok's the most important, but that they kicked Reebok out of the market. Let me put that at the beginning.
You need something at the top. Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying. And, these paragraphs are not necessarily first paragraphs, right? So the thing with a summary is it's a one paragraph animal. It only has one paragraph. So it needs a real, as you say, kick in the door at the beginning. So what do you have in mind? Can I see what you've got?
It's just a summary that I just read it yesterday, so it's
Right, okay, so Poe.
Yeah.
Philosophy of composition.
The same one.
Same one. Okay, perfect. Us about the buns.
just they don't write backwards.
I know what you mean. On which balances or something. With the idea of maintaining relatively short structure of lines. It's about the most prose. Well, is it a poem or prose? So this is prose.
Can't you write a poem in prose?
Yeah. Unless you call it that, right? And then you're being fancy. You're saying, okay, I think this beautiful paragraph I wrote is so beautiful. It's really a poem, even though it doesn't look like a poem.
Oh, so it's not a poem.
But prose literally means straightened out. And that's what the word originally means. So
Okay.
it's not little lines of verse.
So it's not prose. He wrote poems because they were
He wrote poems. And although this piece, right, this kind of theory article is prose.
Okay.
Newspaper.
He wrote prose on a poem.
Exactly. But a poem is shall I compare these to some mistake? It has to be in lines of verse. This is the essence of intent. Can I see the bottom? Grows is probably a good verb for you here, because he's talking about something that's not organic, because it's artificial, but it grows out from its center. Right? But what is the bottom line?
That authors form something and then work to fill in the holes.
Mhm.
Yes, so you just,
What's the takeaway here? In other words,
is that
who needs to know this?
the audience needs to know that authors don't write like people think they do. It's not mystical like that. It's just, they form like one little thing as like the cornerstone, and they work back to the front.
And what did you say? What did you say is the main takeaway here?
He sort of said that in the beginning that there's no like really step-by-step thing how they complete the work. It just and then he just talked about he formed the raven.
Okay, but he doesn't just talk about it. It's an example of what he means, right?
Yes.
And for those of us online who might be tuning out, I just want to reiterate the takeaway here that what we're doing in practicing isn't just a grammar thing. It's a kind of thoughtfulness that at the end, literally the end of each sentence, you're thinking about, okay, what is going through the reader's mind now? What question do they have? What do I need to answer with the next sentence? That's the process. And it's really an end of each process, end of each sentence activity. So not something you should do while you're getting ideas down on paper, but something you should do now when you're revising what you've already written. So at the end of your first sentence, Rose, what are people thinking?
So how does he write his book? You can say there's really no step-by-step way to do it. I would say that the reader was saying, how did they finish the literary work? How did they finish the writing?
Okay, so we can start with a kind of mysteriousness. What Edgar Allan Poe says that the way things are written isn't the way most people think they're written. And what's his agenda? What does he reveal? What is he showing us here?
In the whole essay?
Yeah. Yeah. What's the payoff? What are we learning?
That they don't write. They don't just start. They write back.
Okay.
They
So
figure out the point and then figure out how they're going to get to the point.
okay. So what?
It's different from what the regular people think. They don't. Right.
It is. It is. And the Raven is his example.
Right.
Is that a poem you knew beforehand? Really?
I know.
Right.
I'm not a fan of his work.
Sure. Well, sure, but it's pretty hard to escape. I think even if you're not a fan. Jack, how about you? Raven?
Yeah, I've heard it.
You've heard Jack's heard of it. So yeah, this piece of his that we almost certainly haven't read sheds some light on a poem that's pretty famous. So yeah, on the one hand, yeah, you've heard of Edgar Allan Poe. You knew Edgar Allan Poe. So we're learning about poetry. Okay, we're learning about writing. We're also learning about him. His own poetry is going to be an example of this. So how can we get to that? Get to that so what moment more quickly, as William was suggesting we need to do in a summary. What should that second or third sentence be to answer the reader's question, which is often going to be a so what kind of question. I'm asking, how would it go?
Something about the process not being as lustrous as it appears, and that it's
How?
How, yeah, and then move to the example, because that's really interesting. You know, if you can tell us and kind of walk us through, again, briefly, because it is a summary, an example of how this works in the Raven. And one of the things you're asked to do with a summary, last I checked, is quote judiciously and accurately. Not much, right? If you're just quoting, you're not summarizing. But you mentioned the refrain. What's the refrain?
Right, nevermore.
Nevermore. Okay, so probably wouldn't hurt to quote one word, right? Nevermore, and then tell us how that grows into the poem. And then you're probably done, right? Maybe one sentence to wrap up. But we shouldn't push that 250 word limit here. Yes?
I didn't include that. There were more.
But isn't it important?
He repeated a lot.
Yeah.
But it's not important to what, it's important to the Raven, but not important to the point he's getting across.
You sure? How?
How does nevermore apply to him saying that the writing process isn't lustrous?
Well,
It's not mystical.
and so when you read, tell me you've read the Raven start to finish at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, you got it. How can you do this if you haven't? So by way of contrast, I don't think we're wasting Jack's time with this. Read the poem and see how you experience it. Because the poem doesn't feel like it grew out of nevermore. It feels like it has a beginning, middle, and end. But then when you see behind the scenes, you see, okay, it grew out of this kind of chant, this word that was haunting it, right?
Mhm.
So you see that that's kind of the point of the thing. You see the difference between the way the reader experiences it and the way it was written. And this is relevant to you who are not here to learn how to write poetry, because every document is like that. Your introduction should be the last thing you write. Your introduction should be the last thing you write. But nobody's ever going to know that. But as you're writing the paper or the essay or whatever it is that you're writing, you're going to come up with some great idea you didn't have at the beginning. You're going to need to weave that back into your intro right before you turn it in. So rewrite your introduction last. If you reveal it, right, if you explain the joke, it's not as funny, it's not as interesting. But if people see behind the scenes, if they see how the magic trick is performed, it's not as interesting. But you want to, in this case, in this particular piece he's writing, he's revealing something about the process. What did you find? And everybody has this. If we can take maybe 2 more minutes, flip over your handout. You don't have to do this, but Jack just did it. What did you notice? What were your answers? What's the reader thinking? The reader goes through this thing.
For the first one,
yeah,
the reader's asking,
did you write it down?
I just snapped it on.
Kind of did it in your head. Okay, so you guys can take this with you, and if you would all do that example. Real example about the changing SAT. It was in the New York Times. You might be interested to know that. You might have brothers or sisters or friends who are going to have to take the new SAT. So have a look at that.
Thank you.
Questions? Thank you.
Appreciate it.